Hello everyone. Today I got three amazing horror books for you, and they all take place in one of my favorite settings in a horror book, a small town or a small area. We all know that small towns usually carry the deepest, darkest secrets, and I love a good book that explores those things, and you can dig right in there and find out what all the horror is about when it comes to these places. And these three are all excellent. We have one that's in a really small town. We have one that's on an island, and then we have another one that's going to lighten the load a little bit. Let's just put it that way. And as a reminder, I have horror books for sale as well. And if you want to read any of the books you see on your screen, there is a link down below where you can purchase those. They're only $1 each. And I will also leave that link in the pinned comment as well. And don't forget to check out my Read More Horror t-shirts. You can have one of those for yourself. Many colors and sizes available. There's a link down below for that. All right, let's get started. So the first book I want to talk about today is called Gone to See the Riverman by Triana Christopher. When this book first came out, I remember I saw it almost everywhere on my social media. You know, it was on Twitter and Instagram and Threads. A lot of people were talking about it. They were excited about it. So I wanted to check it out. But like some things go, I bought it and then I forgot about it. It was in my TBR, kind of buried, you know. I'm sure that's happened to you as well. And then when I was scrolling through my books, I was like, oh, I definitely want to read this one. And so you might have heard of this one, but this is my first time reading it. And man, this is not an especially bloody or gory book, but I will tell you it's one of the most disturbing books you'll probably ever read. Some of the themes in here and the way it's presented to you is just so good, and it really has a way of building that tension and bringing images in your head that are really sick and twisted, kind of. Basically, this is about a woman, and she is obsessed with a certain serial killer. She's like one of these groupies, a true crime junkie that, you know, she writes to these serial killers and tries to get in their head and get close to them and everything. And this particular serial killer she's making headway with. She writes to him, he writes back. She goes to even visit him in prison when she can, and bring him money and things like that. And she thinks they are creating this kind of bond, which is what she wants, because she wants to be like number one. Now she tells herself she's only doing this so that she can get inside insight and maybe start a true crime podcast or write a book about it that with details other people have not known yet. But there's something else going on. She's crossed that line a little bit, and she is now almost in love with him, almost, even though she won't admit it to herself. Now, in the meantime, she's also taking care of her older sister. Her older sister suffered a traumatic brain or head injury when she was a child, and she acts like a child. She's affected by that mentally, of course, by that head trauma. And so she's basically caring for her older sister. And we also know that they had a brother who passed away at some point in their lives. That's all we know going in. But one day this serial killer asks her to do him a favor. Something that he assures her will bond them together, that will prove absolutely that he can trust her. And she jumps on it. She is more than willing to do this. If that means he'll give up all these other women that are writing him and just focus on her. And basically what he wants her to do is go to the small town, very small town, and in the middle of the woods, there's a cabin. Now, this cabin was not discovered during his trial. The police and other authorities have no idea it exists because it's an illegal structure deep in the woods of this small town where nobody really cares. And it's been in his family forever, but there's never been any paperwork or anything. So nobody else knows about it. So he gives her the directions how to get to this cabin, and inside the cabin he wants her to find a key, and then he wants her to take this key to somebody who lives along the river, calling themselves the Riverman. He doesn't give a name or a description. He just says you'll know him when you see him. She's begrudgingly, she has to take her sister with her because her sister cannot be on her own, and she can't find anybody to take care of her sister for that amount of time. Plus, her sister is going to throw a fit if she doesn't get to go. So reluctantly, she takes her sister with her. And this is where the story really, really gets good, because they're going to hike deep into these woods in this small town trying to find this cabin. And it's taking a lot longer than what they first suspected it would. And along the way is when we're going to find out things about their past. We're going to find out things about our main character. And at first she seems like a loving sister who's taking care of her family member who instead of putting her in a home. So she seems like an altruistic kind of person, right? A really nice, lovely person. But that is not the case. This family, things are going to go dark. Things are going to get twisted. Things are going to get very perverse and very, very disturbing, as I said. And as we find out more information about things that have happened with these sisters and their brother in the past, as they're making their way to this cabin, it just gets creepy as hell, man. I'm telling you, it freaked me out a little bit. This is one of those books you do not want to read at night, or start reading at night. Trust me on that. But I kept reading until like 2 or 3 in the morning. Somewhere in there, because there's no way I'd be able to sleep without knowing exactly how this was going to turn out. Because there is a Riverman. We are going to meet him. We're also going to meet another character that kind of helps these two sisters once they find that key. But even that is going to be very gross, very disturbing, and disgusting. And you're just going to have to read about it to find out. The further this story goes, every little page just kind of oozes its own creepiness. Yeah, you'll have to read it for yourself to find out, and I do highly recommend it. There's a link below where you can pick up your copy through Amazon. And next we have, by Rachel Eve Moulton, is a book called The Insatiable Volt Sisters. This was a very fascinating book. It's beautifully written, by the way. This is more of a literary horror, but this is set on an island off of Lake Erie with not a lot of people on it. And the Volt sisters are actually half-sisters. They have the same father, but different mothers. 10 years previously, they moved away from the island, each of them were going to a different college. But then the death of their father brings them back to the island. And there we are going to get the full picture of what took place, what caused them to leave in the first place, and why they're feeling more than a little discomfort at the idea of having to go back. Because this is a very effective story about family and about loss and about grief. But on the other hand, it is also an incredibly well-told creature feature. Because there is something on that island, living in the waters of the quarry. Something that for years, women who are suffering things like depression and sadness and guilt kind of feel called to that island, and that quarry especially, where they will climb to the very top of these cliff rocks and then throw themselves off into the jagged rocks below the water underneath. And then something will take them and feast on them. But the thing is, this town also knows about these things. It's a very well-known fact that women have gone missing there for years and years and years. But they are covering it up because no bodies have ever been found. So even though these women have been missing, there's no evidence to suggest anything wrong happened on that island. But we're going to find out that their father, before he died, he had some very deep, dark, terrible secrets himself. And that is going to have to do with what is going on with these women and this island, and the role that these sisters have played and might have to play again in the future for the survival of this island itself. It's really, like I said before, it's beautifully written, so it's easy to get into. And then you have this creature, and what is it, and how did it get there, and how did all this, did all these people on this island decide at once not to share any of the secrets? You know, how can they let something like that go? We're going to get into all that. This book will explain all of that as it goes along. But it's one of those books where it builds up to that. And at first you just think it's a creepy little island with sisters that really don't want to be on there. But one of them actually does. And we're going to see how this island affects them differently as well. But it's a very, very well told, very, very frightening story. And I can't recommend it enough. I know some people have been talking about this book, but I don't think enough people have. But I would highly recommend it to you. Yes, the Insatiable Volt Sisters. And again, there's a link down below where you can pick up your copy through Amazon. And next we have Tales from the Gas Station, Volume 1 by Jack Townsend. This is going to lighten the mood a little bit from those other two books, which will probably give you nightmares. This is a horror comedy, and it's a series. I believe there's 4 books in the entire series. And I do recommend all of them. But this is about a guy who works at a gas station in this really weird small town where creepy things happen, and they got cryptids running around. They got a cult that lives in the woods, a murder cult that comes into his gas station when they run low on snacks and potato chips and things like that. There's a guy in this book that keeps getting killed over and over again, and every time he comes back he looks even worse than he did the last time he was killed. They got all these bizarre, weird things going on in this town, and this is basically the story about this gas station attendant and the town itself and the weird people that inhabit it that he comes across during his working hours and sometimes when he's off work, and how he's trying to figure it out. Like to him, it's whatever it is, you know, nothing he can do about it. But along the way, he's going to he's just going to experience some things and people that are scary, that are frightening, but also this book is just full of humor. I would say it's more on the side of comedy maybe than horror, but the situations are horrific. But this author has a way of writing about them in such a way to make it lighthearted. I laughed more than a few times reading this book, and that's saying something, because horror and comedy, I think, are two of the most difficult things to write and do justice by those genres, and combining them and having it being this good was really a joy for me. I absolutely loved this book and this series. You're going to get a lot of weirdness, you're going to get a lot of laughs, you're going to get some scenes are actually pretty bloody, but not in the way like the other two books would be. It doesn't take itself too seriously. And at one point, he's going to meet a demon that kind of lives under this town, and it's just crazy. It's just crazy. But I like the way it's written. It's very easygoing, a folksy kind of style of writing, a first person from the perspective of this character, and it's just fantastic. If you're looking for a horror comedy that really delivers on the horror and the comedy, and you want to give yourself a little break from all the things that are a bit too serious, you know, this is the perfect way to do it. And Tales from the Gas Station, there is a link in the description below where you can pick up Volume 1. And like I said, if you like it, go ahead and pick up the other 3, because they're absolutely hilarious and very much worth it, I think. And thank you for taking some of your time and spending it here with me. And until we meet again, keep reading spooky, my friends.